Hey guys, back with another deck profile, and this time we're doing a purple kind of Plutomon Rush deck that I've made myself so far. Um, I did just take second place using this deck, so at least it's proven to at least be able to take out yellow. Against blue, especially the new Ancient Garuru, I would say it's like hit or miss depending on what you draw. I essentially bricked super hard, and that essentially cost me the game, but in game two I was really close, but I don't know, like blue is still a bit too fast for this deck at the moment, so I have to work on fixing that. But for now, let's get into the deck profile. So first for the babies, we have four Demi Marimons. You want like this guy is basically broken because you can get a draw one when it dies. So essentially, the best combo would be with a specific level 5 that lets you draw two, and then a Gabumon level 3 that essentially also gets you a draw two. So essentially, combining with this, you can draw 5 cards, which I did 2 or 3 times with against a red turbo deck. I just went off on that essentially. And then for the final maybe you run Xiaomon because retaliation is always really good. So just having one copy, but you don't absolutely need it. It's just kind of like a backup plan. This is what you're going to be mainly focusing on, just drawing to unbrick your hands and just getting as much power as possible. So that's all for the babies. For level threes, we of course run max copies of Gazimon, specifically because this stops yellow from gaining memory from Blinding Ray, which is a super busted card. And so you need this to just stop them from gaining memory and also essentially good bait so that they have to hit this to gain more memory to do their plays essentially. So this guy's really solid at the moment. Just hard playing him after maybe summoning like a Plutomon is like the best feeling because then they have to kill this, so they can't kill Plutomon in the process of DP reduction. Then we run 3 Labramons because as I mentioned in a previous video, I do not have Tapirmons, so I have to rely on Labramon. And so far, he's been actually working out really well, especially with that draw one, discard one. That actually helped set up a option card for me where I had to have a level 5 in the trash. This set it up perfectly for me, so I just I honestly prefer him. It is easier to loop stuff with Tapirmon, but I he's a perfect, honestly, like a different option if you don't have it like I do. So and don't want to pay like $8 for a Tapirmon at the moment. So solid option. And then of course the purple Gabumon that lets you draw two when it dies on deletion. This card is super busted if you pair it with Demi Marimon because essentially you're getting draw three if it dies. I mean, and it will die, so it's like you get free draw and unbricking your hand essentially. Then for the last rookie, we play 2 Ghostmons because this deck does run Metal Garuru. So when you do Digiverse, you can get this back and then use it next turn for a new egg essentially. And it's a solid like free rookie. So if you really have to, sometimes you can just hard play this if you really need to. Um, that's all the rookies so far. We run six. Let's see, six, 10. We run exactly 12 at the moment. I actually originally ran 14, but that kind of clogged my build a little bit. It's okay so far, but like, I mean, there are moments where I honestly do not get a rookie at all, but most of the time I have been able to get at least one, and it's been solid so far. For level fours, we run 4 Marimons standard. 1 cost, 5 cost. If you really need to hard play, it's not too bad. Um, 5 of the new Devimon from the structure deck. I mean 4, my bad. 4 of these guys from the new structure deck because he is a 1 cost blocker, and it does hurt to play for 6. But if your opponent, like let's say Puppet Mons you, you can play 2 of these and just profit off of that honestly, and it's really solid. For the last level fours, we're running exactly 10 to make it consistent. Um, we're running 2 Vilemons, solid blocker just in case if you can't draw this, you have this as backup. And yeah, just 10 level fours usually is solid enough. You see these often enough that you don't need any more. Because especially since the deck this deck specifically focuses on level 5s, specifically Servicemon, but we'll get into that in a second. For the first level 5s, we run two Lady Devimons because her ability to draw two is really busted, but her inherent ability has come up so much. Honestly, this ability won me the game because I basically summoned Plutomon on top of her, and then used the Hell's Gate to kill their level 6, and then pop their level 3, so their board was essentially gone at that point, so they couldn't really recover from that. And then one essentially, honestly, this is one of the main stars of the deck. Three Cerebusmons. This guy is busted if you build him on top of Gabumon and Demi-Meramon because you resolve all their effects one at a time. So you get draw two, discard one, then draw two, discard one, and then draw one again. So essentially, you're drawing 5 cards in the process, but only discarding 3. So you're getting a +2 out of this no matter what. And of course, he's a pretty big guy. He's 6,000. The one thing that I built this deck specifically around was so that they can't DP, like yellow cannot DP reduce them enough to kill them. Some of them you can, especially the level 3 and 4s, but the level 5s and above do not have that issue. They essentially have to either target one and just reduce them down to maybe like 3,000, and that's it. They can't do any more, so they have to target one of these instead of these. So you're basically safe having like just this out on the field for like a turn or two. Then one of the main draws of the deck, Cerebusmon Werewolf mode. This guy won me games, honestly, because of the discarding in this game. I can essentially make this dead card in my hand live if I draw into the option card Necrophobia, because I can just play that for free, and instead of playing it for 9, which I did do in my first game against Blue, that was a huge misplay, and I've learned from my mistake from there. So just always ditch this card if it's in your hand somehow, and then play Necrophobia, and you can just get this for free. Plus, if you can get this on field from, like, let's say they hit into security and it revives this, next turn you have a Plutomon essentially, no matter what. Like, the deck focuses more on getting out Plutomon rather than Metal Garurumon, so you don't need to Digiburst as much with this. So honestly, getting this guy out is really easy. Plus the fact that if you already have, let's say, Cerebusmon, you can summon him, pop him, and you get to draw two, and you get to recover the 9 memory you just spent because that's part of his on-play effect, essentially. So he's literally the heart and soul of the deck at the moment, along with Plutomon. And well, Plutomon is his evolution, so it just works out perfectly well there. And speaking of which, we run 4 Plutomons because why not evolve and draw 3 and then kill your opponent's monster with a Hell's Gate or whatever, or use Necrophobia for free, essentially. Like, this guy is strong enough to essentially survive almost any attack into yellow. So you're unless you're hitting the Valder arms, that's like the only thing you have to be afraid of. I actually ran into a Valder arms on my first match against yellow today, and that hurt, but I recovered like super fast after that, so it wasn't that big of an issue. Then we of course run the 2 Metal Garurus because essentially he is the backup plan, because there are times where you just don't want to evolve into Plutomon, so it's like you don't want to give them that extra memory, so you can just evolve into Metal Garuru. Like, let's say like you've attacked with this, you just evolve on top of him and then you give them 3 because they usually have their tamers out. So he's a solid backup option to just play your options and hit pretty hard because he's 11,000. That's all for the level 6s. For level 7s, I only run one level 7 specifically because this deck really doesn't really have any other level 7s as options so far. I run the 2 Millennium Mons. This guy has clutched me games almost, like, I've seen him somehow in like every game, and he has always like just clutched it. Like, my opponent had to punch into this, and then they killed it and gave me like draw, and then I had to and I summoned them back and just essentially won next turn with my other guys that were already in the breeding zone and on the field. So he is a must in this that you have to run 2. 1, you will never see him. If you run at 2, you will literally always see him, and you'll always have game with him every time. Then that's all the Digimon for the deck. For options, we run about 5, 6, 7, 8 8 options, but they're all really hard hitting ones. First one will be 3 necrophobias. The deck is based around the level 5s, so you want to see this in your security and or in your hand, because once you get a level 5 in grave, you're about to go off essentially. You're just gonna pop off and just make everything you want. Then, of course, for removal, we run 2 Hell's Gates because this takes out War Greymon, Chaosmon, just Nidhoggmon, anything that's level 6 or higher. You just want to get rid of it as soon as possible, and playing it through Plutomon is the best option. You can hard play this if you absolutely need to, but most of the time I've been able to essentially just play it for free, so it's just really busted. And then the standard, of course, 2 Trump Swords. This is a backup for this, essentially, but it really sucks that you cannot play this with Plutomon, but it's fine. You can play it with Metal Garuru, so it's not too bad. And then the 1 Nailbone. There are times where you actually do have to get some level 4s like blockers. You have to get blockers to survive, so this is there for that, and maybe getting an extra body from the level 3s. And then for Tamers, we're running 3 mats because you want to set your memory at 3. And of course, when you play him, you can recover 1 purple Digimon or 1 purple option card from your trash. So essentially, if you, like, let's say you just played this or this, you can just play him and then recover that, and then next turn just pop whatever they have that's an issue, or grab back Necrophobia and just revive more. So this deck it takes a second to pop off, but once it does, it goes into overdrive essentially. Like by the end of a turn, I managed to get about 6 people on board. So even if they had like 5 security, I was gonna win regardless, even with a blocker. So better to just like once you get out a Cerberusmon and a Plutomon, you just have to be patient and just wait out their game, because if you can memory star them enough, like specifically yellow, because this deck is built to take it on, um, you will have game no matter what. It's honestly like this, the Millenniumons and the combinations of Millenniumon and Plutomon together with Cerebus just win you the game, because this deck is just so aggressive at that. If you allow it to get to that aggressive point of having this on field, nothing, like aside from Chaosmon or War Greymon in a yellow deck, will not kill this. This thing will always survive, and you will always evolve into a Plutomon no matter what. So you will have that play, and once you have that, you will just keep going off and recovering every turn. And most of the time, I've honestly almost, like, the reason why I've almost lost is because I've almost decked out. Because with the combination of all these cards, you can essentially draw almost your entire deck and unbrick your hand. And at that point, you have so many options in hand, you literally just don't know what to play at that point. So at that point, you just have to be really careful and watch what you discard at that point, because once you discard, if you actually discard the wrong thing that won't get you any draws the next turn, you actually might mess up your chances at that point. You need to be really careful. That's the one thing I learned while playing this today. You have to be super careful with the discards. You have to make sure the next turn you can evolve with something. If you can't, then you have to discard something high level. But even then, it's better to discard a level 5 because Necrophobia is always live no matter what. So better to just do that. Um, and so far, this deck has worked really well. It has bricked occasionally, but so far it's actually been very consistent. I may bump up the rookies because I have had an issue where I just never saw them, and then there's issues where I just always see them. Like I had a game where I just bricked and I only saw these. So it's honestly just depending on luck at this point with this deck sometimes. But it is but I would say like 9 out of 10 times it will be consistently like just going into overdrive around like turn 2. So if you want to try out purple, I would highly recommend building this, because this is essentially the best deck at the moment to counter a lot of the meta. Especially, of course, as I keep mentioning, sorry for mentioning it so much, but the top #1 deck is yellow. So you have to be prepared to take on yellow, and this is how purple is doing it at the moment. We will have more options once we hit set 5 and set 6, but for now, honestly, I think this is probably the best way to go about it. You can do Metal Garurumon, but I mean, I have a friend who specifically runs that, and that one does do very well. It does do very well, but my personal preference is to just use him as a backup plan while Plutomon is my main game along with Cerebusmon Werewolf mode. He doesn't actually run the engine, but his deck still beats yellow. It's just like a different way of beating yellow essentially. My way of beating yellow is just hitting them as hard and as fast as possible so that they can't recover at all in any possible way. The other version that I mentioned is it does the same thing, but it's just slightly slower and in a different way. It works very well. I've seen my friend essentially 2-0 yellow almost, and it's just player preference at that point. But purple is a solid option if you're planning to get into Digimon at the moment because it's one of the top meta decks. It's like I think it's like in third place, right behind like green at this point. So and a lot of the cards right now as of like today have dropped a little bit, so they're not as pricey. Like Lady Devimons aren't really that bad anymore. Cerebus and this are like dirt cheap. um Metal Guru actually has dropped in price recently, same with Pluto, because people have been pulling so many of these. This thing has just dropped. Millenniummon still remains 30 something, or actually I think it's gone up to 40. He's probably the most expensive card you're gonna be spending your money on, but he is worth the money because he honestly wins games sometimes. The option cards aren't really that hard to get except for Trump Sword. Trump Sword is still going for like $7-6 at least, but you only honestly need two. You don't need three because there are times where you just run into this in the security and they already have a suspended Digimon, so there's no point. Running two is already a good thing. And Nailbone, it comes in a structure deck, and from what I've seen lately in my area, Bandai has been ramping up distribution of decks, so you should be able to find a purple deck to just get the nail bones because there's four of them in the deck, so you should be fine. And then the only other money card I would say would be Matt, but he's only like maybe $3-4, so it's not too bad. And you don't really need more than three. You can run two, but three is honestly optimal because you want to see him as fast as possible to set your memory so that they can't memory starve you. So honestly, that's essentially like how this purple deck like should be at this point. There are builds that run Lilithmons. I do not have Lilithmons. I will have them soon, but for now, I'm just running this build, which doesn't technically use her. There is a blue-purple build that you can run that runs her, where you just keep recycling option cards. But I'm not really sure about the consistency about that. You actually have to like modify it a bit to make it function properly. Because I have a friend who plays it, and it's more janky, but the jank actually makes it work. My version is I've been slowly modifying it, and it's still not consistent enough. So I would say stick with something like this or the Metal Garuru build because they're both really good at the moment. Um, so yeah, thank you for watching, and hope to see you next time.